The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gala webinar series. My name is Manuela Noske, and I'm the Communications Manager at Gala. Gala is a global nonprofit trade association that enables communication and business across languages and cultures. We're headquartered in Seattle, Washington, in the United States. And today we're kicking off the Gala 2020 webinar series with a presentation by Katarina Gashewa from RWS Moravia. She would talk about how LQA programs are tools to manage not only the target quality. We will kick this off in just a moment, but before I do that, I need to go over our housekeeping items even in the year 2020. First, everyone's lines are muted to cut down on any noise. If you experience any technical difficulties, let me know by using your chat box and I'll work with you to troubleshoot them. If you have a slow internet connection, your audio may be disrupted. If that happens, you can use the number listed on the GoToWebinar panel to call in with your phone. We are making a recording of this presentation and we will post it to our website after the presentation. All participants will receive a link by email. If you have any questions or comments, please type them into your chat box. I will keep an eye on those and I will try to serve up as many questions to Katarina as we have time for at the end of the presentation. Lastly, I'd like to remind you all that registration for the Gala 2020 conference in San Diego is open and that early bird rates apply until January 31st. So if you're planning to attend, register now so you get the best rates. Next, let me introduce Katarina. Katarina Gashewa joined the first localization team of Moravia IT in 1994, having previously specialized in technical and legal translations. In 2004, Katarina set the foundation for Moravia's Linguistic Services Department to develop and implement language quality management strategy and expert language-related services at Moravia. As a team leader, expert advisor, and mentor, Katarina has been supporting the worldwide team of in-house and in-country linguistic experts in linguistics, quality assurance, terminology management, machine translation quality assessment, and post-editing in both theory and in practice. Katarina holds a master's degree from the Masaryk University in Brno in English and German language and literature. And she also lives in the beautiful city of Brno in the Czech Republic. And now, without any further ado, Katarina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Manuela, very much for your introduction and for you to have an idea. So welcome, nice morning, nice afternoon, nice evening from Brno, Czech Republic. Welcome in my office. This is what I see every day, such an inspiring view. Thank you for your interest in this webinar, in which I would like to share with you ideas and thoughts about this very interesting and exciting topic that is related to LQA as a service. I would like to say upfront that since the topic is very broad and complex, I may not cover all your expectations, so feel free to either ask questions today or reach out to Manuela with your questions later on. The topic, as I said before, is very exciting and it brings new revealing ideas, horizons, surprisings, and challenges with any new request coming from our buyers. So let's get started. Language quality, assurance, assessment. What does the A actually stand for here? This is related to a very interesting discussion I had the other day with my colleagues from the Quality Management Department about LQA as a service with a huge potential going forward. And basically it was triggered by a comment made by a colleague who said, okay, there is so much new content being translated every day, and then the question is that it's going to have to be QA'd, if not in full, then partially. And here we are. What do we actually mean when we say it's going to have to be QA'd? Does it mean we are talking about quality assurance or quality assessment? Because those two are two different things. Assurance is to be understood as a proactive quality management tool that really ensures that systems, tools, processes, basically everything we have in place helps us produce target content in the quality and in the line of with the expectations and specifications of the buyers, of the end users, of the final audiences. Whereas quality assessment is to be understood as the piece that helps us measure and evaluate the quality. So basically, LQA program in our understanding stands for both elements. Why? Basically, shall someone consider spending money on the LQA program? So if you are on the LSP side, like we in RWS Moravia, so basically the answer is pretty obvious. We need to ensure that our deliverables meet what the expectations and specifications of our clients are. But if you are on buyer's side, so what benefit does the LQA program basically bring to you? And what basically do you want to achieve with the LQA program? So the goals, as I will mention shortly, might be very different for the buyers. But the overarching goal of any LQA program should definitely be that we jointly define, assure, measure, and cultivate quality of product, of language, and of service. Now, we have to think about how to get there. To go there, we have tried to define the key areas of focus. So our key areas of focus would be represented through 4 crucial elements that in our understanding are the most pivotal building blocks of the whole LQA program framework. One area is about designing and implementing framework that really ensures that buyers' definitions of the target content quality are met. The other area focuses on processes and methodologies that need to be applied so that the quality is defined, everybody understands what to be achieved, having in mind also the experience of the end user as the final stakeholder. You cannot manage what you do not measure. So for every quality step, we need to have a solution that enables us to capture data, which then do we use for proactive quality management. And we are humans, so human environment is crucial for us. Our goal should be to foster collaboration between various stakeholders with using tools, infrastructures, and frameworks that currently exist, but us as the humans, we do play the key role here. So, in a nutshell, and this is what I mentioned also in the very short synopsis for this program, when setting up an LQA program or when discussing an LQA program request received from any potential buyer or our existing clients, we always think of several pivotal components. The components refer to the focus areas I mentioned before, and then we always pull up the most relevant perspective from each and every component so that we are able to set up the program that meets the requirement. To start with, definition is important. For us as a service provider, it's crucial to understand clients' needs and goals. But there is a tricky point to this. In our discussions with our clients, we also often come across the fact that if we ask this question to the client, so basically, what is your goal? What do you want to achieve with the LQA program? They are somehow surprised. So we, in the discussion, we can reveal that sometimes they really are not exactly sure, is it I want to check the quality of the translation or the quality of the translation service. I want just to have insight into the quality of the translated content so that I can proactively take some actions on the source side, source creation side, or I proactively prevent bugs and complaints later. Do I want primarily to understand root causes and issues and challenges that may then cause problems or lead to incorrect target language content? Or do I want to understand how the translation should be produced so that it really meets target audience's expectations and is suitable for the given market, so that it really ensures that the branding message is consistent across the board, etc. So clients' needs and goals is very, very critical. And we know that goals of the LQA program typically evolve a lot. So the program may start very small and it grows big over time. Some clients reach out to us with their request just for translation, bilingual files, quality evaluation, and then hand in hand, the needs grow to audits of linguistic assets, process improvements, data cleanup, and so on and so on. So so additional types of activities and services are then gradually added to the original starting idea of why do I need an LQA program. So it's very important to have this factor in mind when setting up the program. It may be one single ask at the beginning, and then as the program grows over languages, over content types, over the pool of internal stakeholders on client side, for instance, the scope of the requirements rises, and the infrastructure and the processes, workflows must be ready for this, which is then about related to the questions, basically, how do I achieve the goal or how to achieve the goal? With that, we often discuss like the infrastructure, processes, measurements with the client, because sometimes there is not enough clarity, or the client may not consider all of the consequences of the fact that, for instance, they operate in one system, but then the maybe quality evaluation should be done in a completely different system. Frequent questions that show up relate to data ownership, linguistic assets ownership, also turnaround times, what the flow allows, etc. And another very relevant question is related to parameters that define programs' sustainability and business value. Some of the buyers do have a very clear idea of the KPIs, whereas others who are not that much familiar with all of the tricks and challenges related to quality management, they are not sure, or others might just expect that whatever their users, their stakeholders provide as a feedback to them is an actionable item. Hence, the one of the KPIs is then set in a way that maybe is a totally unrealistic goal, because not all of the feedback that comes from, for instance, the final in-country end users is always actionable, relevant, and possible to be implemented. So definition of client of the goals, how to get there, and definitions of success criteria are the important, very important starting point. This is an example of simple questions that anyone can ask at the beginning. This is what we prepare ourselves for any discussions, or when we are starting the discussions with the client and we are coming up with our diagnostic or investigative questions, so that we are really sure that we know how to design the service modules or service components on our end. Answers to those questions, and there could be many more, of course, because this is just an example, then may result in changes in the original spec or expectations of the client. The goal of this presentation is not to go into the details related to a very complex and difficult topic of infrastructure tools and integrations, and I'm no technical expert. Anyways, we see that this is a very important area that needs to be discussed among the solution architects and system maybe designers, integrators, etc. Because with the LQA programs, what this is, LQA program is requested as an outsourced service. It might require some cost of investment into various types of integrations. There are different scenarios in how the LQA per se is performed, or how the whole workflow is being set up, managed, where the feedback loop fits in, and how different types of collaborative platforms, communication platforms, supportive platforms are being set up and defined. So this is a very important area that should not never be forgotten, and I'm sure that all of you who are in this business are very well aware of this. Then I would rather like to look into the process perspective from the language quality assessment view, with the focus on how do we, what scenarios do we have, and how do we evaluate and measure quality. Again, this is a very simple example of a cheat sheet that we typically use, where we try to think how to start the discussion, or how to look into whether the LQA fits into a whole complex workflow of integrated modules, or whether it's just one separated module together, for instance, with another separated module that is intended for in-context review or user feedback or any kind of linguistic testings. So thinking of the process as well as the LQA type in one go is very important. And at the same time, the questions around the workflow and scoping, frequency and timing are closely linked to that, because the program or the there might be some limitations with regards to volume, with regards to time, with regards to output formats, with regards to other internal dependencies on client side, whether then the decision is made that it is possible to go for a full review and evaluation cycle. I mean with that something gets reviewed and evaluated, the reviewer either corrects the content immediately and provides annotations and information about the issues detected, and then there is a rebuttal process with the translators, or the reviewer creates just the LQA feedback, and then there is this rebuttal process, and maybe implementation of the fixes happens at a later stage, or bulk implementation may happen after a certain part of the content or project is completed. Where the SME review fits in, it could be expert review by domain experts, it could be expert review by clients in country representatives from marketing or sales departments, and how do we go around this? Another area is for LQA scoping. You know it very well that often it's not possible to do 100% QA. We see different scenarios. One of the very interesting scenarios is, for instance, the one in which the reviewer really reviews everything, corrects everything, but then provides kind of LQE feedback just for a certain part of the reviewed content. In an ideal world, the process is set up so that the scoping, frequency and timing is driven by data, and it's happening dynamically. The scope increases whenever it's necessary with regards to the visibility, importance of the content, or quality gaps and flaws discovered. For that, data are needed, which we'll see in a moment. Then, to be able to go into the quality evaluation process per se, it's of course important to understand how do we define quality. There is several elements that, in my opinion, contribute to the fact that target content is perceived to be successful. I have read a very interesting quotation from Steve Jobs, who said back at that time that basically you've got to customer experience and then work back. So basically we need to understand who are we producing the content for, and then based on this we then should be thinking of all of the varied contributors to target content quality. From our translation quality perspective, so just linguistic quality perspective view, definitely we typically do look into error rate, and we will do a deeper dive into that in a moment. But then we also have to consider user perception of the overall experience, and we have to be thinking about the tools that we should design, define, implement to be used as something like a common measure for overall satisfaction of the user that helps us identify how much the translation itself basically can be seen as a detracting factor in the overall user's experience. I don't think it's important to mention that individual emotional experience is influenced by many elements that we can govern and cannot, but we have to take those into account. And what we have to do, definitely, we need to be sure that the target content meets the cultural attributes that are expected within the given market to bring the content closer and natural to the end user. So to start with, if we look into the language quality evaluation, we need to start with the definition of language quality. This is very challenging because currently we live in an industry that lacks a clear definition of what is a translation quality and what is not a translation quality. We have many standards that define processes, how to produce good translated quality content, which is, for instance, the ISO 17100. But we do not have any codification in place yet that would help us define what really the translation quality should look like. We even do not have the guidelines, the best practices, how to get there, which is one of the goals of the initiatives that are currently running under the ASTM, as an American Society for Testing and Materials. I am sure all of you know, an international organization that develops and publishes standards for a wide range of materials, products, and services. And guess what? Under this ASTM organization, there is a committee on language services and products. And under this committee, there are currently 2 work groups gathered together who are busy with defining new practices for analytic evaluation of translation quality and a new practice for holistic quality evaluation systems. So we're getting there, but it's gonna still take some time to be there. We still have to live in kind of a vacuum, yet there is already at least frameworks that help us define these specifications. Those frameworks are the known MQM, multidimensional quality methodologies, and TAUS, DQF, and then if it comes to the actual error typologies definitions, we have the harmonized model MQM and DQF. Both methodologies basically look into the quality assessments from dynamic perspectives. It means when defining a metric to quality metric that should be used for quality measurement, the purpose needs to be taken into account. Purpose is the most challenging and pivotal decision point in here, because use case use case scenarios then drive further definitions that need to be considered. One of the starting points is the content types. Then another important element in that is the error structure. Basically, how do we define and also how do we name what is an error, what is not an error and just an issue, and how do we incorporate all of these specifications into the measurement that then clearly sets the tolerance limit for a certain for errors or towards errors for a certain word count, and then this is the passing threshold. So to back to the reality, this is an example of, again, how we can go around when building our content definition metrics. Many different perspectives, and then definitely one can always pick up only what's relevant. It's by far not covering everything, but just an idea which elements definitely need to be considered when we are building the system of content types, content modules. People use different terms. Then, as indicated before, and as it obviously results from the fact that we actually already have two working groups under ASTM, where one focuses on the analytic evaluation methodology, whereas the other one looks into how to assess the content holistically. We can consider those two methodologies as the key building blocks for the measurement framework. And we also see clients who would like to kind of have both, because not in all cases one or the other is the best solution. So this is an example of how to build an analytic evaluation metric. I took the defined TAUS content types as something that should be the inspiring material for us here, because this is something that was created some time ago as a result of collaboration of key buyers in our industry and key representatives of language service providers. as well. You might want to think that you might need also some bigger granularity, of course. We know that these are the cases, but on the other hand, we should be able to look for some cross-domain, cross-industry standardizations. So even if we use our internal, more granular perspectives, if it comes to content types, we still should have this basic list of content types on mind. Same applies to error typology. We have the key error dimensions that are absolutely a must. If we do a quality evaluation, we have a huge set of error root causes, error subcategories that are linked to those. What you can see is the harmonized AMQ and DQF subset of errors and error typology, issue typology that exists under AMQM, the one that has been agreed again within the key stakeholders and experts in the industry as the most suitable and relevant one. You may not need all of the sub-items. It's definitely needed. You consider the core main error types to assess. I do not want to go into the details about how this is set up and how to do it. This could be a topic for a completely separate deep dive session into how to build a quality metric, but basically errors per se can have a different weight within the particular content type for the particular content type, which is displayed through the numbers, the different numbers linked to the individual error types. And then errors need to be always considered within the context where they appear. So this is then reflected in the error severity scheme everybody is familiar with: minor, major, critical, neutral, and so on. And then we should always define what is the error tolerance. Ideally, we know how many errors or error points. If we just use the scale with different than 1, do we allow for a certain benchmarking word count, for instance, for 1,000 words? We may or may not link it to the score. And again, this would be a long story why I'm saying we may or may not. For many clients, we also were asked to create at least a holistic evaluation template, because say they need to evaluate very short chunks of text, highly visible text. And for those segments or jobs that are 50 words or even less, it often doesn't make sense to go for all of this analytic exercise. So this is an example of some questions that could be asked, and also analytic error categories that can be linked to the questions so that some further correlations can be made. Quality tiers, basically another very interesting and a very interesting topic. Here, let me quote again someone who said that quality is to give the customers what they want. So why to give them more or why to give them less? Therefore, we have started working with the concept of quality tiers, quality levels, quality grades. You can use whatever you makes sense to you at this moment, because again, the terminology has not been codified yet. So quality specifications are driven by content use cases. Please take the information in this slide as really very, very informative. It's no definitions that would be applicable or set in stone anywhere. I got inspired by Taos, I got inspired by other definitions proposals coming from our clients or coming through other channels. So it's not that the definition you see here is something that really should be treated or taken as is. It's just an example to give you an idea about the differences between the quality tiers and then how it can be reflected in the quality metric. You can simply increase the number of errors, or you can do many different things. So, as said before, this could be a topic for a completely different session. We are in a people industry. Everything is about humans. So I believe we've talked a lot about quality evaluations, measurements, tools. We need to look into people. Without people, no LQA program would work. So there is several phases for working with people in any LQA program. Clear that it's onboarding, it's a grace period, standard engagement, and then improvement programs and phasing out process. Our experience shows that none of those phases should be forgotten when the program is being set up, because specifically the phase of onboarding or grace period is not being paid such an enough attention, not at the beginning when the program is being set up, but then when the program grows, new domains, new languages, or higher volumes are being added, and new reviewers need to be onboarded to enlarge the pool to cover new services. So nothing new, but it's important not to forget about this. And then also same as we have data for quality measurement, we need to have data for performance monitoring, which could be different types of data. I have just listed a few of KPIs or things that we are looking into, because this is what is typically wanted also by the clients in their definitions of the service KPIs. So a few examples of data visualizations and analysis. It's crucial to think or not to forget that data collection must be automatic and must happen at every stage whenever it's possible to collect any type of data. For quality data, also all types of metadata need to be collected so that for the analysis, various views at data are possible. Also, our experience shows that anyone who needs to analyze the data or who needs to manage this has to look into the segment levels. Same applies to performance quality data. So a couple of examples of possible views and how the dashboards could look like, different perspectives. As you can see, trends, score trends, pass-fail ratio trends, language trends, error breakdowns, deep dive into error breakdowns, different types of perspectives. When building a system, you always have to consider that if you cannot use standardized error taxonomy, you need to have mapping systems in the background so that in the end, you are not only able to have client-specific data using that use the language of the client, but you also can benchmark, compare the data, and compare apples to apples. So this is just a few examples of different possible views and criteria related to data that are being produced as an important product and outcome of any LQA program. In the end, I would like to cover a few areas which are typically related to LQA programs that we deliver for maybe at a later stage, or for clients who are really very mature and they really trust the LQA service provider and operate in more or less a partnership mode. So with this, basically it's being called language quality ownership, where basically we as the LQA service provider supply also the owner of the language quality. The naming conventions might be different: lead reviewer, brand ambassador, language moderator, language owner, whatever you wish, which is basically a personification of the target content quality, and it is a bridge between the world of a linguist and the world of customers, internal stakeholders, and the world of the end users. So a couple of tasks and typical areas that where the language owner is typically held accountable for. And to conclude, basically collaboration is the key. Quality is communication, collaboration, because without this, it would be difficult to understand what the buyer wants and expects, what their stakeholders, users are after, and then how to define our expectations or LSP's expectations for the translators. So we need to work with this collaboration framework that is important and is very crucial. In the end, my last slide here goes back to the very first questions that I asked. And this is the questions our clients keep asking us again and again. What added value will the program bring to me, or your program will bring to me? And how can you assure that my money spent on the program gives me then the confidence that this content really is what my users expect. So it's not easy, obviously, to answer those questions, because we can often have many different tools, measurements, a lot of data, and even with that, the users may not be happy, because maybe we have not engaged the right linguists, we are not having the right language ownership, and the language moderator does not have the right decision-making power to push for changes in the language that is being used, or technically it's not possible to make a huge scope of changes in the translated content, and hence end users still may not feel very much comfortable with the localized content. As you can see, there is many other questions that can be asked, and so definitely you have additional questions as well, and I believe that this is all I wanted to share with you today.
Thank you so much, Karina, for your overview. It's been great. The floor is open for questions from the audience. So if you've got any, just type them in. We got one here that should be really just a quick disambiguation question. On the slide process, you mentioned both UX and ICR. In the context of UX linguistic testing and clients needs review ICR. Could you just explain quickly what those abbreviations stand for?
Let me go back to that slide so that everybody sees.
Yeah, it was at the beginning.
I think this is the one.
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so SME review, subject matter expert, it could be basically anyone. It could be domain expert sometimes when you do it, when we review or localize very technologically very demanding content. So it could be technical experts, AutoCAD engineers, some experts in, say, data management systems, financial experts, investment experts, medical doctors, etc. But on the other hand, it could also be experts in marketing areas, experts who have an extensive knowledge with regards to the market insights for the particular region.
Yeah, I think the question is really UX stands for user experience, right?
Yes.
And ICR stands for what?
In country review, so in some of the models, LQA models that exist with the clients, they actually may not go for an LQA program, outsourced LQA program, but they may have their internal stakeholders. Typically, it could be marketing or sales people or their employees who then are asked to do the review of the translated content depending on buyer's decision, and then they provide feedback.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I think that should be helpful. We got a question here about, I think it's about the linguistic reviewer. So given the many aspects on which reviewers are being evaluated, how can they be evaluated on a linguistic level?
That is really a great question. This is something that is a headache, I believe, not only for us, because linguistic competencies is something that is difficult to evaluate. So it could be done through. It always costs time and money, because there must be some kind of an extra, either a review, or that could also be some cross validation discussion among several linguists. There is a direct feedback coming from the client, from clients' representatives, that something is, or users, that something is really, does not sound naturally for their language. So it can be through the additional review. So one can apply additional review on the review done by the reviewer and assess the suggestions made by the reviewer, or assess whether the reviewer really has captured all of the problems in the translation, also from, say, fluency, style suitability, market suitability perspectives, or it goes through any type of additional feedback loops.
Cool, thank you. Thanks for that. One last question, probably, given where we are at with the time. On one of your slides, I took notice of the fact that you talk about the variety of cultural attributes and non-language elements, and that seems to be an interesting shift. You know, instead of talking about the correctness of cultural attributes or the accuracy, could you define a little bit what you understand verity to mean? What is verity? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that a new concept in LQA? Or?
So basically, first of all, this is again kind of my personal definitions. It may not be 100% correct with what maybe buyers feel or industry sees is important, or it could be named differently. But verity is also the fact that source content is typically, say, English content is typically created in the US with many of the cultural elements that are relevant for US. However, we see that, for instance, translators as well as reviewers in other parts of the world are struggling with what to do with text that purely relates to concepts which exist in their cultural world. So basically, it needs to be also assessed from this perspective, that the content in the end is kind of maybe transcreated, and that the non-language elements like images, like colors, or any other potential connotations are correct for the given content. Because the language accuracy could be there, but if the translation is accurate but does not make sense to the end user, or end user audiences in the given market are not so much familiar with maybe the country where the source has been created, so they do not see why it's in there, or they are not getting the point.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for explaining. It's an interesting concept that I think that, I think it warrants, a deeper look, like it's not just accuracy, it is something beyond that, right? So thank you. Thanks for bringing that up, Vera. That is all that we have time for. We're coming up on the full hour. So a big thank you to you for taking us through this, and to our audience for all the questions that you posed. We would really appreciate it if you could take just a moment to give us your feedback on today's session using the post-event survey that should pop up right after the webinar ends. It is short, but as always, even in this year, your perspectives help us to continue to refine our program. And with that, I wish you a good evening, Katka, and everybody else, or most of you, a good day or a good afternoon, depending on where you are. And I look forward to seeing you at another Gala webinar soon. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much. Good.